As the current year comes to an end, we have two sets of people that we can identify from the investing public. We have those who managed to attain their specific goals that they set out for the year ending 2024, and we have the other group that did not make much, and some did not even have an income out of which they could make those investments or savings. We'll be looking at important accounts or investments that one need to be looking at when it comes to 2025 for purposes of investing. If you have your lump sums or you have accumulated enough or you're in millions, this video may not be very suitable for you. I've tailored the information in this video to suit a person who wants to begin an investing journey, a person whose financial period or the year 2024 did not yield much, maybe because they didn't know what to do or they didn't have much. Nevertheless, you can also consider throwing through the information because I'll be throwing in a few tips on how to manage your investments come year 2025. Welcome to our today's video on 7 important or must-have investments or accounts come year 2025. We'll be looking at that after 3 seconds, a short break, so don't go away. And as usual, like the video, share the video, and engage us in the comment section. See you after 3 seconds break. Welcome back and thank you for your patience. The first account that we are going to look at, we will call it yourself or you. I know you are already debating with me on why you become an account, because I want us to deposit something in you. The you that we are talking about here will be yourself. Many investors or many people don't regard themselves as an asset. When we're talking about investment is asset creation process. Creativity that we use to build assets that in the long run will start generating consistent cash flows or regular cash flows that will be supplying or financing our lifestyle, ambitions, and our legacies. So you become an asset because as we define an asset is anything of value that has ability or is generating cash flows. Notice that I've used the term ability and is generating cash flows. There is a very common term that you will always come across when you are talking about investing and finances. And this term, we call it a dead asset. Dead asset, that term can easily be misunderstood. But a dead asset is a term that we use to describe an asset that has the potential, but it's not generating cash flows at the moment because something needs to be done in order for it to start generating money. A good example is idle land, plot Maguta Maguta. If that plot sits idle, no agricultural activity is taking place or no other activity like being rented out for purposes of generating cash flows, that asset we describe it as dead to mean that it's not generating cash flow at the moment. And most of us, we are in that state because as assets, you may be generating an income or cash flow in the name of a salary. But the question is, have you exhausted the assetness in you? Because at the point of expansion of your incomes, you will need to look at the different forms of assets that are in you that you can potentially use and put into use to start generating cash flows aggressively in order to expand your current incomes and create or increase your disposable incomes, thereby making available more cash flows for purposes of investing. Majority are tied within their cash flows are tied, their incomes are tied within their budgets. They have expanded their financial baselines to a point where they don't have any much available for the investments. There are two ways you can generate incomes. Either number one, you be aggressive and directly engage your assetness. You can your assetness or the assets in you will look at your skills. We will look at people. We are going to look at your time. These are just but a few forms of assets in you that if you apply them, you can start generating incomes, including opportunities of negotiating a pay rise if you are employed, or looking for a promotion, or directly engaging into opportunities that will lead to directly increasing your income for purposes of creating or expanding the amounts that are available for investing. The option number two that you have is to become defensive. And defensive, we are looking at your financial baseline, reducing your financial baseline. Where financial baseline, we are talking about the total amount that you require to finance your living expenses on a monthly basis. That becomes your baseline. A baseline is the minimum amount that you need to survive on every month. Is the minimum amount that you require to finance your living expenses. That is the list that you must have every other month in order to survive. And therefore, reducing your baseline is reducing your budgets or cutting down on your expenses. The amounts that will be saved on the budget that you have cut, that is made available for investing, and in any case we will call it an indirect income. It is easier to generate money or cash flows directly as compared to indirectly generating income, because at some point you may be living within a budget that you cannot reduce. Those are two very important points: a dead asset and a financial baseline. In 2025, those are two areas that if you look at them keenly, the first account that you have said it's you can start developing cash flows, can start depositing in itself. The part of you again that will be very important in 2025 is depositing a skill in yourself. Use your money or use your cash flows to invest in yourself and build capacity to generate extra income come year 2025. There are so many opportunities and learning areas that you can adopt on online space or in social media that you can use to expand your existing incomes. Learn a skill, apply that skill, develop it, and start generating incomes from that skill. That investment, the extra income that you are getting from that skill that you have learned, will be the returns from that investment in you. And that is the reason I call you the first important asset. The reason we have discussed you as the first account or the first investment, it's because you as a person, you will ever remain the greatest asset that you have, because in the event everything comes down crumbling, if you are to lose all other investments, you will have yourself to look at and start working again or working yourself to start generating more investments. And therefore, if you were to look at net worth, where net worth is the balance of assets after all liabilities that you have been taken care of or have been deducted, then you remain the greatest asset in your portfolio, and therefore you are the greatest piece of asset in your net worth. So expand your net worth quickly would require expanding yourself, because an expansion to the largest asset will generate a higher value in asset portfolio compared to any other asset. Think about yourself. deposit a skill, deposit an investment in yourself for purposes generating incomes, and you will see a ripple effect in your investment journey come the new year. Then once we have generated assets, now we will start looking at the other separate accounts or investment that you can look after. The second account that will be very important that you look at will be a money market fund account. And this is an account where we would want to sit our emergency funds. Don't look at it just as the money market account. The part that is important is understanding what an emergency fund is, the role it will serve, and then from that you choose the appropriate place where you can keep it. Emergencies are events that will happen that you do not plan or you have no prior knowledge of, and therefore you cannot objectively plan and save for those events. Therefore, emergency fund and financial management, it is advised that you should keep a specific amount which is measured as 6 to 9 months worth of living expenses for an individual who is employed, or 9 to 1 year of living expenses for a person who is in business. Those parameters were designed a long time ago, and what was considered is the period that you would take in the event you lose a job to the time you get a new job, or the period that you will take to establish a business from when the first business you had collapsed, how long it will take you to build another business that can sustain your lifestyle. And therefore, it is important to be prudently know that such parameters have changed. It might take you a longer period of time when you lose a job to get a new job, more than that period that was set of up to 6 months worth of living expenses to be your emergency fund. The same, it may take longer than a year to establish a new business that is generating enough cash flows to sustain itself and also fund your lifestyle as a person. And therefore, it is you to decide. But an advice is you must keep on piling that emergency fund. Regardless of how much you're putting in there, don't just save in the emergency fund looking at the specific period as given as 3 months or 6 months or 9 months. An emergency fund needs to be built over time, but what you need to look at is the period or how quickly you can raise a specific amount of money from your assets or from your investments to tackle an immediate need. So an emergency fund will be pulling resources or investment in that account for purposes. Its objective will be taking care of events that happen unplanned, and therefore they pose a threat against our long-term investments. Most of the long-term investments that we'll be looking later on in a short while, if you don't have an emergency fund to cushion them against unplanned shocks, it means that you can be compelled to liquidate or sell a treasury bond that you had invested into for a long-term goal in order to take care of an emergency. Think emergencies as a tire burst. You have a car, and because you cannot plan, you can't know when a tire burst will occur. If it does happen, you will need resources immediately to replace that tire. Think of an accident. While some of these events, their management or the risks can be transferred to another firm, like an example of what you have said as an emergency or an accident, where risk in the event of an accident can be transferred for management to an external party that is an insurance. There are cases where that accident would require immediate funding by you as the owner of the car. So when such events happen, you need a quick investment that you can use to raise resources to take care of such an event. Those are the reasons for which we keep an emergency fund. Therefore, an emergency fund need not be limited. We need to be put, that is a primary parking point of our cash flows. And after we have built a certain amount that will vary and depend from one individual to another person, then we can start diverting or diversifying by diverting a part of that investment sitting in the emergency fund to other investments that can take longer to liquidate, and therefore those ones will be suitable for for our medium and long-term goals. Because at the end of the day, an emergency fund can be used alone to accumulate for the long run and still serve the purpose of a medium and long-term investment. But because of the nature and the various reasons for which you need to split the three investments, we need to have a specific investment that targets emergencies, and that is the emergency fund. The third account, after the emergency fund account, we have said that one should be sitting in a money market fund, will be a sinking fund. And a sinking fund will be another account which similarly will be more suitable sitting in a money market fund account. The sinking fund will be an account where we are investing for specific goals that we know or we have planned for, and they will actualize, or we need to actualize those goals within a short period of time, more or less in not more than 18 months or in 1 year. Therefore, these are funds that we are investing to take up or to consume them or use them for specific goals within a short period of time, that is a year. I deliberately use the term consume because once that known planned date come, then those funds will be exhausted by applying them to the planned event. And a good example would be a vacation. You are at the beginning of the year and you set a sinking fund in order to enjoy a vacation at the close of the year. It means that we are going to be building that fund throughout the period, but at the end of the year, at the specific date where we have planned to go for that vacation, that fund will be withdrawn and exhausted on vacation. Such are the goals that you need to specifically invest for them, and once that time comes, you exhaust that fund on actualizing that goal, then that is a sinking fund. It's very important to separate the sinking fund from the emergency fund, because the sinking fund are investments that you have specifically set aside for a specific goal on a known date. Those funds are better handled on a separate account from the emergency funds. An emergency will utilize the emergency fund, but not the sinking fund. But important, you have said that these two accounts need to be domiciled in the money market funds. And the most important reason for that is that money market funds have characteristics of attributes that support these kind of events. You can easily access your finances from a money market fund account. You can also the convenience that come with investing towards those accounts because of the minimal amounts of investment that you require to invest in such accounts. Then the fourth account is where now we are going to keep our medium and long-term investment funds. Much of what we'll be investing in these in the medium and long-term category are funds that will be transferring from the emergency fund to other forms of investments. Because you have said the emergency fund need not have a limitation in terms of duration. You don't have to keep funds in that account for a set period of time. It's a parking point. We are accumulating in that account all our funds. But will be transferring specific amounts from the emergency fund to assume long-term investments to take care of our medium and long-term goals. These accounts that we will set for the medium and long-term goals will be for a long-term period, and therefore they need to be protected against emergency liquidation or disposal to realize cash to take up of events, because that destroys that investment. It also destroys the goals for which we are investment. And liquidation on long-term investments, in most cases, we realize a lot of losses or huge losses. And therefore, it's very important we distinguish what, or we make resources available in the immediate or short term to take care of such events. So the fourth account will be a Dhow CSD account. This account we shall be using to invest in the primary treasury bond market. Note we have said the primary treasury bond market because in that market we shall only be investing in a government securities and not the corporate securities or corporate bonds. The corporate bonds, we can also invest in them, but those ones would require a different form of account. So the Dhow CSD account, which you access from the central bank, that account we shall be investing in treasury bills and bonds. And more specific, that account we need to use it for treasury bonds, because treasury bills hardly will treasury bills give you returns that can match or beat the returns that you get from the money market funds. Money market fund investments will have taken care of most of the short-term investments that you can get from the money markets. Money markets are not just designed for treasury bills. All forms of instruments that target to invest for a short period of time, they are purchased or sold within the segment of the capital or financial markets that we call the money markets. And therefore, your Dhow CSD account will be going for treasury bonds, instruments that we invest for more than a year, and possibly the ones that are going to be giving us returns that are higher than what we are getting from the emergency fund or the money markets, where we have the emergency funds on account of tax savings and the returns themselves. It will make no much sense getting into invest or transferring our emergency from our emergency fund and investing in instruments that are giving us returns that are lower than what we are getting from the money market fund where the emergency fund sits. So we'll be evaluating for and investing in only long-term bonds or corporate treasury bonds that are giving us returns that are higher than what we are getting from the emergency funds. The other important point on that account, we shall be investing in treasury bonds for purposes of locking our returns. Every investor needs to have a personal investment policy, and that policy is your reference point on what you are accepting and rejecting from the investing market. If you have a policy to invest in a minimum return of 15%, maybe, then it means that when the markets are going down, you need instruments to purchase fixed instruments that lock your returns at that minimum threshold that you have identified for yourself. And that one differs from one or varies from one person to another. A third important thing on the treasury bond investment, you need not be tied to one economy. You can invest in treasury bonds of different countries, where different countries will also give, or different markets will give you diversification, and they will also give you a platform to lock your returns when You can take up treasury bills, treasury bonds of another country, neighboring countries, treasury bonds, Uganda, treasury bonds, Tanzania. You'll be using treasury bonds, Rwanda, and other regional markets. So don't tie yourself to the local market alone. You should also be able to invest in other markets. When our instruments are going down in terms of returns, other markets, they can be doing better. And therefore, that one would only mean you now shift focus from investing in one market to another market. The fifth account will be a special fund. We are now getting to the territory of assuming greater risk. A good swimmer, just like a good dancer who knows the right time when to leave the stage, a good swimmer, and as a beginner, you don't just jump into the deep end. You assume risks progressively as you learn the investment or as you learn investing. Don't switch from money market funds and fixed income instruments straight to high risk investments. There is no wealth creation without wealth protection. You can engage in the creativity of wealth creation, but lose all your wealth by investing in risky investments without the know-how. It is safer to have an equity fund or a special fund. Special funds are available even in the money markets. But what these accounts require, their initial investments and top-ups to these investments require a huge amount of money that will have to take time to accumulate. And that is the reason we said the first important account will be the money market account where we are domiciling our emergency fund. We will pile or keep accumulating our investment in the emergency fund, and once we have raised enough that we can now transfer to another investment while leaving enough money or funds to take care of our emergencies in the emergency fund. Your emergency fund should never be left dry. Emergencies don't respect people. Once you have raised 50,000, you have 150,000, depending on how much you want sitting in your emergency fund, you can transfer 50 to a treasury bill. You can transfer 100 to a treasury bond. These special funds accounts, they require a substantially higher amount of investment, and therefore you shall be considering them as you progressively grow in your investing. The special funds having a greater risk compared to the money market, they will give you also comparably a higher return compared to the money markets where we are enjoying low risks. Then the next account that you will consider is the equity fund or the CDSC account. Equity fund, these are they are collective investment schemes, just like they are money market accounts, but these ones are invested purely in shares or equities. So instead of going straight to the stock exchange and invest directly on your own as a DIY, you can first start investing in equity funds and also source those ones that are giving you comparably good returns as per your investment policy. On the other side, you can also have the Central Depository System account, with which you are going now to invest directly in the stock exchange. But the advice from this channel is, as you learn on how to invest in shares, because the higher the risk, the higher the returns, but in most cases, it is important for one to understand that stock markets are designed to rob or transfer money from a certain set of investors to other investors. While these other markets, like the money market, they are designed to protect your capital while giving it relatively some growth, because the key thing there is protecting your capital. But in the stock markets are designed to transfer wealth from certain individuals to other individuals. And we categorize or differentiate these two individuals on account of patience. So wealth is transferred from impatient investors to patient investors, and that is a great risk. You can start by investing in the corporate bonds, where those are fixed return instruments that don't give you a lot of risk. And with time, start learning and accumulating your understanding on how to invest in shares. Those are roughly 7 investments or accounts that you will need to organize your investments come the new year. Thank you for watching.